Rugby in Argentina? When most people hear about sports in Argentina, they immediately think of football, or soccer, depending on where you're from. They think of Maradona's hand of God and Lionel Messi's wizardry. It's a country where football isn't just a game, it's practically a religion. Yet, somewhere in the shadow of that football empire, a very different kind of game has been quietly rising, gaining momentum in the land of tango and asado. Welcome to Watch Rugby. And yes, we're talking about rugby, but not just any rugby. The unexpected rise of a brilliant Argentinian rugby team. The story of how Argentina, a nation obsessed with football, emerged as a serious contender in the world of rugby is nothing short of a sports fairy tale. And like any great tale, this one is filled with ups, downs, heartbreaks, triumphs, and, true to Argentina's character, plenty of passion. Early days, the rough beginning. Let's rewind the clock a little. The national rugby team of Argentina, Los Pumas, has a name that strikes fear into the heart. Pumas. Ferocious, wild, untamed. Sounds intimidating, right? Well, in the early days, they were more like kittens. Small, struggling, and overwhelmed. Argentina wasn't exactly known for its rugby prowess. To be fair, they tried, but playing against the rugby giants, teams like New Zealand's All Blacks, South Africa's Springboks, and England's Men in White was like trying to race a Ferrari in a family sedan. You might look good starting out, but in no time, you're left choking on their dust. For years, Argentina's rugby team was seen as a bit of an afterthought. They were a distant cousin. The ones you invite to family gatherings, but don't expect to do much at the dinner table. Their encounters with the world's best teams often ended the same way. Heavy losses, bruised egos, and the realization that they still had a long, long way to go. Their players, full of heart, but lacking the resources, training, and competition to keep up with the world's elite. But here's the thing about Argentine spirit. It doesn't give up easily. Argentina rugby wasn't just about brute force on the field. It was built on a foundation of hard work and perseverance. The kind of grit you find in the barrios of Buenos Aires, where every knock is a lesson and every loss is an opportunity to improve. It's not glamorous, but it's effective. The turning point, 2007 Rugby World Cup. Then came 2007. Now, this was a year that no one, least of all the rugby world, expected to become the launchpad for Argentina's rise. The Rugby World Cup was being held in France, and Los Pumas, let's be honest, were there to make up the numbers. No one expected them to do much. It was like inviting a backup band to perform before the main act. But Argentina had other plans. In their opening match, they faced France, the host nation. A team with a long and storied history and a stadium full of passionate French fans. The odds were stacked against them, and the world braced for another Pumas loss. And then, something magical happened. Argentina beat France 17-12. The entire rugby world was stunned. France, the birthplace of elegance and fine wine, had been outplayed by a scrappy, determined Argentina team. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement. This wasn't the same old Argentina. This was a team that meant business. Los Pumas went on to finish third in the tournament, their highest ever World Cup finish. And they didn't just win games, they won respect. Suddenly, people were talking about Argentina rugby, and it wasn't in a patronizing, good for them way. It was real. They were contenders, the kind of team that could no longer be written off as just a footnote in rugby history. For a country so deeply embedded in football culture, this rugby success was like discovering a hidden talent you didn't know you had. Suddenly, rugby was becoming cool. Football was still king, of course, but rugby, it was gaining traction. young kids, once obsessed with football, started picking up rugby balls. The sport was making waves in schools, and the national team's success inspired a new generation of players. There's something poetic about rugby's rise in Argentina. In football, it's all about flair and finesse, like watching a dance on the field. But rugby is gritty. It's tough. It's not just about skill, but endurance and heart. In many ways, it reflected the working-class spirit of Argentina, a country that had weathered its fair share of storms and came out stronger for it. Suddenly, the nation wasn't just turning into Messi's magic, but also to the bruising tackles and try-scoring feats of Los Pumas. Sports bars that were once exclusively filled with football fans were now starting to show rugby matches. People weren't shouting goal anymore. They were roaring try over plates of asado and glasses of Malbec. The Rugby Championship, a new era begins. In 2012, the dream that began in 2007 turned into a full-blown reality. Argentina was invited to join the Rugby Championship, the Southern Hemisphere's most elite competition. Now, this was huge. Playing in the Rugby Championship meant going up against the best teams in the world. New Zealand's All Blacks, Australia's Wallabies, and South Africa's Springboks. These were the juggernauts of world rugby, the teams with the history, the trophies, and the intimidation factor. Joining the Rugby Championship was like entering the lion's den. For Argentina, it was an opportunity, but it was also a monumental challenge. The first few years were tough, really tough. It was like stepping into the ring with the heavyweight champion of the world. Argentina took their hits, and there were times when the scoreboard was painful to look at. But here's the thing, every game, every loss was a lesson, and Argentina doesn't back down from a challenge. Slowly but surely, they learned, adapted, and got stronger. They didn't have the same resources or rugby culture as their counterparts, but they made up for it with grit, determination, and a whole lot of team spirit. And then, in 2020, came the moment that no one saw coming. The ultimate upset, beating the All Blacks. 2020 was a year full of surprises, most of them not very pleasant. But for Argentina rugby, it was a year that will be remembered forever. In November 2020, Los Pumas did the unthinkable. They beat New Zealand. The All Blacks, the most successful rugby team in the history of the sport. And they didn't just beat them, they dominated them. The final score was 25-15. Argentina, a team that had once been laughed off the field by the world's rugby elites, had just defeated the most feared team in the sport. It was more than a victory, it was a defining moment. Argentina rugby had arrived. The world watched in awe as the Pumas celebrated, and back home, the entire nation erupted in joy. It wasn't just a win for the players on the field. It was a win for every Argentine who had ever dared to dream. So what's the secret behind Argentina's incredible rugby rise? It's not just about tactics or training. Sure, they've worked hard on those aspects. But at the heart of Argentina rugby is a deep sense of unity and pride. These guys aren't just teammates, they're brothers. They play for each other, their families, and their country. Every tackle, every try, every hard-fought win is a testament to the resilience that runs through Argentina's veins. 2023 Rugby World Cup. New heights. Fast forward to 2023, and Argentina found themselves once again on the world stage, competing in the Rugby World Cup in France. Expectations were high after their historic win over the All Blacks, and Los Pumas did not disappoint. While they didn't make it to the final, they still put in a strong performance, reaching the semi-finals and finishing 4th overall. This was no small feat, especially given the strength of the competition. The likes of South Africa, New Zealand, Ireland, and England were all vying for the title, but Argentina held their own. They fought hard in every game, showing the world that their rise wasn't just a flash in the pan. This was a team that had staying power. The future of Argentina rugby. What's next for Argentinian rugby? Well, the future looks incredibly bright. The sport is growing at an astonishing rate in Argentina, with more and more young players picking up a rugby ball instead of a football. Schools and clubs are investing in developing the next generation of Pumas, and the talent pipeline is stronger than ever. The question isn't whether Argentina will continue to rise in world rugby, it's how far they can go. There's a sense that the best is yet to come. Argentina has already proven that they belong on the global rugby stage, but they're not satisfied with just being part of the conversation. They want more. More victories, more titles, and who knows, maybe even a World Cup. The rise of the Argentina rugby team is one of the most exciting stories in modern sport. From being the kittens of world rugby to becoming the Pumas that now strike fear into their opponents, Argentina has shown the world that with heart, determination, and a little bit of Argentine flair, anything is possible. And so, next time someone says Argentina, don't just think of football, think of rugby. Think of the Pumas, because the land of tango and football now has a new love affair. And it's one that involves scrums, tackles, and a whole lot of stake-fueled passion. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the unexpected rise of Argentina rugby, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories on the world's most incredible rugby stories. Who knows, maybe Los Pumas will be the next World Cup champions, and you won't want to miss that. Drop a comment below with your favorite Argentina rugby moment, and let us know what team or rugby personality you'd like us to cover next. Until then, stay tuned, stay passionate.